Until you do it.
Now, I'm finally like day 4. I'm like, okay, I think I can still probably.
I can't wait to hear this. And then
I've never had a problem like that before. I mean, that is the worst.
I want to hear what Josh is like. I mean, we talked the whole way, and I know he struggled, but it wasn't like that.
Yeah. Once you crest, it should have been fine. The downhill was harder for me than the uphill. Correct? All right. Should we get rocking and rolling? Coach Jensen is not here today, so I'll have to find my best accent and kick her in gear. By way of announcements, what we got? We got our September 9th proxy run coming up. Still looking for some silent auction items. We're getting quite a bit of stuff, but the more the better. Bring that to Liz or Holly or Marissa, preferably Holly because she's kind of the guru over that, I would imagine. Yeah, and if you could promote that with friends and family. We've got a few more flyers that need to get distributed. And we are inviting all treatment centers. So treatment centers that are out there, if you want to come, we have a special code for all treatment programs that want to come. They can register for free. You've set links to all that, but
everyone.
Yeah, we'll do another batch of that. So yeah, come run the proxy run. September 9th in accompanying with the Addict II Athlete softball tournament, which is going to be quite the extravaganza. Amazing wardrobe so far. Some amazing shirts. Beyond that, when I was over at Mapleton City, they were wanting us to hype up and promote the Moonlight Half Marathon. It's going to be a blue supermoon this time. You guys can't beat that, right? Once in a blue moon. That doesn't mean you'll see my behind. It just means that there are going to be 2 full moons in 1 calendar month. But it's also a supermoon, which is even more impressive. I guess that just means it's bigger.
Yeah.
That's closer. It's closer. Yeah.
When is that?
The 1st. So the 30th to the 1st, right? Yeah. So yeah, that should be a fun one. So I told her we'd text that. I just got confirmation. I just got a direct message in Facebook. I don't like saying DM. It sounds not good. I got a message from a gal who's on the team, but she's back east, who has a friend who's coming to Utah, who's from what you just said it? Maui, who lost everything in a fire. He is a 2XL kind of guy. And so I told her we'd start kind of gathering some clothing, maybe some donations. He'll be here in a week or so, and kind of kickstart him off on having at least something when he gets here. She's going to give me more information, but just to put that in your minds, we've got some 2XL shirts and stuff here, but just, I'll find out more of what he needs. She's going to do a little bit of an inventory to kind of find out what his needs are. But he lost everything in the fires, and so he's coming here for a while. So we'll just kind of embrace him and get some help. So just put that on the forefront of your mind. What else, Marissa?
Overdose Awareness Day. We're just going to do the Capitol.
So we were going to do overdose awareness for the first time in history down here in Utah County, but apparently Utah County doesn't realize that there's this thing called overdoses, and they're like, you can't have the park here and do that stuff here, and it's going to cost this much. Dumb. So we'll start planning for next week down here. But we'll go ahead and join with Salt Lake City and go up there and do that. That's the same day, the 30th, right? 31st.
Thursday.
31st.
Are we gonna run? Are we gonna run and do everything as normal, or just be there?
What do you guys think? It's kind of up to you guys. I'm kind of against running in Salt Lake right now, so however you guys want to do that, I'll hose you with water and sprinkle you with praise. But what do you guys? What do you guys think? We could.
It's a great first mile.
Yeah, the last mile. I'll have PTSD. Maybe I need to do this for EMDR therapy. Holy cow. What do you guys think? You guys want to put, we can put something together. It's not that hard. Chris is like, no.
It's a Thursday, so it's a weekday, and we probably need to start at 2 or 3. I know that's why it's been kind of
Let's just
difficult.
run a 5K.
Or,
Or you start from
I
the.
think
So
it
we get
starts
top of
right
Memory
at
Road.
7, so we need to be there
Still bad.
just before 7. But yeah, it's the worst part of the run.
I don't mind doing that. If you guys want to do that, I will meander and kind of trot with you, power walk the up, but I'll plan on being there
And
then.
I'm always
too.
game for running, so.
Okay. Who's even planning on maybe going to the National Overdose Awareness?
Pretty torn that pro is not.
What time is it at?
Any excuse to get Justin out running.
Luke Bryan got rescheduled for that night, so I won't be there.
What was that?
Luke Bryan.
Luke.
Dude,
Bryan.
priority.
Man.
What up?
Oh, it's easy priority.
Oh, okay.
I do know a couple of his songs.
Ours is for the next week, my concert. Got rescheduled for 31st.
What is that?
Offspring.
Oh. Offspring and Luke Bryan.
It's on the 7th, it's on Offspring.
So, yeah, I'll plan on being there. Justin will be there. Obviously, Steve will be there.
Jed was asking who still wanted to, so he'll probably.
Yeah, maybe for my own sanity, we'll just do a little run. Yeah,
VR.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, even if
yeah.
we started at the park where the county capitol is at, the county building is at, that's.
You can go right up second. Turn, go
This is
down.
gonna be PTSD, Steve. I need your help, buddy.
I can talk you through it.
Yeah.
My
Party in the back this Friday, you'll hear all about it. Anyway.
My charge.
Let's plan on doing that. We'll post a start time and then we'll get everybody that wants to up there and represent the team for National Overdose Awareness Night. Heavy hearts. Let's see, beyond that, I think that's it, right? Running group, running clinic, now known as what?
I'll post about running clinic. My kids started soccer, so we have soccer every
Sweet.
Saturday, so anticipate it being earlier.
Okay, perfect, awesome. Cycling Wednesday,
Yep, Wednesday,
Okay.
16.
we have the Salt to Saint coming up, so anyone that would rather bike than run, and I highly recommend that. Now's your time to come biking.
I have audio evidence of talking about how bikes are terrible and that.
Yeah, man.
Going
Yeah,
back through the whole podcast.
I am a fair weather fan. I'm telling you what, man. The Salt Lake Rock and Hard Rock half marathon spanked me into reality. Cool. Liz, anything back there in your neck of the woods?
Just send pictures to my email, liz@addictathlete.org.
If you want a picture on the memory grove.
Like by this weekend.
Okay. Okay. Has anyone checked in with our Cedar City athletes? I know they had a ton of flooding and craziness down there. No news is
Sorry.
good news. Maybe we should. All right. Valerie, please check in with us. We want to make sure you guys aren't parking it somewhere.
And then Thursday, Kenny is doing a hike at Grove Creek, just a relatively simple 3 miles, so at 8 o'clock Thursday.
Okay. Perfect. Relatively simply, yeah. Famous last words. All right. As I'm sitting here, I'm realizing I'm kind of unprepared, but I'll go grab my notebook while Marissa tells you a funny joke.
He'll tell you a funny joke. So
Ready?
the Moonlight Half is,
September 1st.
and then the capital is the 31st. Yeah.
Yes.
So that night.
So the 31st at night at the Capitol, then following night.
Oh, so it's.
Yes, it
And
is
the
the
Moonlight-
following,
the
because it's
Moonlight one's a
Friday night to
different-
Saturday.
Oh, okay. I got it.
So you run in at midnight.
Yeah, it's a,
to September
take your
2nd.
time, take your,
That's the one where you want to try to be as close to midnight
You-
without
yeah.
watching everything.
You start so that you can finish by midnight, wherever that.
start really
means.
early so that everybody finishes at the same time.
Is that gonna be our run for?
No.
No,
That's
that one,
okay.
the Addict Athlete one is September.
That's extracurricular recovery.
But wouldn't it be, couldn't it be an Addict Athlete run for October though?
I think
Because if we, or September.
Yeah.
Nice.
September 1st is not quite October.
Maybe I need to go to Luke Bryan concert.
All right, I have a request from someone that hopefully will jump on here because they wanted to hear this today. They wanted more information, and it's been a while since I've talked about it. And even more so, it's been a little bit more deep. I've been a little bit more deeply invested in helping people identify some interesting things in life that come with Eric Erickson's stages of development. This is something I learned back in graduate school. It was kind of funny because it was just kind of thrown out there, but the more I started making it applicable to recovery and mental health and relationships, the deeper I started understanding that we can fix ourselves. Dun, dun, dun. If we know what, where, who, and why the problem is. Does that make sense? And Eric Erickson, what a funny name. I always say this, whoever named their kid Eric, their last name's Erickson. It's kind of an interesting paradigm. It's like, maybe John Erickson? Yeah. Todd Erickson? No, Eric Erickson.
I've heard worse.
I have to. But I love his stages of development because they are so profound when it boils down to us getting to know where we are, where things got off the rails, and how to get them back together. The coolest thing about this is if you will increase in the areas by which you feel deficient, you're going to get back on track fast. I say this a lot to people I work with. You're not broken, you're just out of sync. And sometimes we have to go back and resync, the swatch, right? Synchronize your swatches to get back on the path of, I'm going to say, like productive lifestyle living and maybe some stronger benefits that you might have had. The coolest part about this is I've never seen anyone that hasn't taken this experience and changed their life for the better if they're willing to get out of the secondary gain. Secondary gain is that kind of mindset of like, I'd like to change, but I'm so entrenched in who I am and what I'm about that if I change, then who will I be without it? But the coolest part about this, I think, is the self-awareness level that comes. The very first thing we learn when we're first born is trust versus mistrust. Isn't it funny that this right here is kind of like the Queen Mary, mother, daddy of them all? Trust versus mistrust. How many of you guys have had people in your life you yourself struggled with trust issues? I've got trust issues. What does that even mean? I got trust issues.
I'm just thinking of that new TikTok trend with the parents and the eggs on their kids'
Oh my
faces.
gosh. Yeah, there you go. Describe it. I've seen it.
So they're sitting there cooking, and then the mom will reach over with take a raw egg and just crack it on their kid's forehead.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be kind of funny and silly. When I first saw that, it was just wives doing to their husbands. I'm like, that's kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're doing it to their kids, a whole different kind of thing starts to happen. Trust versus mistrust. It happens from infancy. Day one, we develop trust versus mistrust. The basic value that we create in the stage is hope. Okay, so if you're in a trusting relationship as an infant, right? And every mom in here knows that if a baby cries in the middle of the night, there's one or two things that it wants. What is it?
Diaper change or feeding.
Yep. Diaper change or feeding, almost like clockwork, right? The baby's somehow uncomfortable. Its stomach hurts. It's like, what the crap is this? It cries. This amazing person comes swinging into the room, feeds it, changes it, rocks it back to sleep, puts it back, and it's like, ooh, every time I cry, when I feel something uncomfortable, this amazing person comes in here, right? So it starts to learn to trust that. That pain equals to crying, which equals being taken care of. It begins to trust itself, And the crazy part about this, you guys, think about how monumental that is. You're asking for help, literally in language that you can understand, and miraculously it comes. What if it doesn't? What if baby's crying and no one comes? And it's sporadic at best. What happens? It develops mistrust. Mistrust on a level of like, not like, I can't trust you. What are you doing over there with that bottle of baby powder, right? It's not that. It's, I have these pains. I'm crying. I'm trying to flag someone's attention and no one's coming. It begins to mistrust itself. This pain I feel has no meaning and no way to soothe. And they say this a lot. There's times when you go in there and you'll rock your baby, you'll change the baby, you'll feed the baby, and they'll cry, right? And sometimes you let it self-soothe, and that's okay because it's already been taken care of. And there's other times you go in there and you're like, okay, maybe something's wrong. You find out, oh, maybe there's Marissa read this one horror story about a baby had the mom's hair wrapped around its toe and it almost lost a toe because the mom's hair wrapped around. So we're always checking toes to make sure, right? Like, what? You remember that, right? That's a real
In the
thing.
sleeper, so you
Mhm.
couldn't see the toe.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you check that stuff out, and so it's okay, but that's because trust has already been established. But if a parent is using, or a parent doesn't want to be a parent, or the parent is a teenager, and the child doesn't get this needs met, it's going to develop a sense of mistrust. So how come us, even as adults, why do we struggle with mistrust? We know better, right? We know that our needs could get taken care of, right? Why do we divert back to that feeling, you think, sometimes? The basic virtue, hope. That's why. Sometimes that gets lost in the confusion of it all, you know? I hope that my problem can be taken care of, and if not, do I trust myself in situations and expectations, things of that nature? The crazy one is this one. This is where cool stuff starts to happen. Number 2 is autonomy versus shame. Sensei, what is autonomous? What does autonomy mean?
Solo, autonomous, being by your, like, able to function by yourself, or
Yes.
not having something drive.
Absolutely. And I love this stage. Autonomy with 2 to 3-year-olds is great, right? It's one of the coolest things. What happens between 2 and 3? Terrible twos. Why? Because they're freaking mobile now, right? They've discovered these things called legs, and they're moving about, and they are on a rampage. They're sticking their fingers in things they shouldn't. They're pulling things off the counter. They're doing all kinds of crazy things. They're moving by themselves. They're autonomous. As an adult, what do you do that's autonomous? I'm curious. Cook, take care of yourself, drive a car. You do all these cool things by yourself, right? And it's kind of awesome when you get to do things by yourself. Remember the first time you did, you like drove a car by yourself, there was nobody next to you, like, okay, here we go. You know, one of the coolest things ever, right? First time you do something, you go to a movie by yourself autonomously, that's kind of a weird thing. If you've never done it, I highly recommend it. It's good for the old ego. If not, if you have limits and limitations placed on your autonomy, then as a kid, you start looking at it as, I want to move here, it's being restricted. I must be a problem. This must be my problem. I'm the issue. Because I want to go here, I keep on getting pulled over there. You know, so much so that now I'm placed in the middle of this this gel cage with a roof on it called a playpen, or what do you call those things again? You sleep in? Crib. Thank you. It's been a long time since I've had kids. And so there's a shame base to it, because it's like, I want to move, I want to do this, I can't. I'm getting restricted. But it's not just the autonomy of movement. It's also like the freedom to explore, right? You know, how do most kids, most babies and stuff, how do they explore their world? The mouth. Yep. You know, it's like, oh, that's a dog poo. Don't put that in your mouth, right? Absolutely. And so these things start to happen when we start putting ourselves in situations where either the behavior is like, hey, yes, encourage, or it's not. Shame is a big one. People have a problem with shame and around here, because they look at it as so black and white that it's got to be their problem, right? How many of you guys have felt a deep sin? No, raise your hands. I felt a deep sense of pain. How many of you guys have felt shame so deeply because you know that you've caused the effect of the snowball, right? Well, we've all done that. And we autonomously probably got that snowball rolling. But this isn't just about like, a sense of shame. This is like your whole being becomes that. I'm trying to do something. I'm getting limits put on me. This is why people in long-term abusive relationships, they start to believe that they're the problem, is because it's been reintroduced and gaslighted into the fact of like, this would all be better if you weren't here. And we know that kind of thinking is not true, right? The next one's kind of rad too, because first we're with autonomy, now we're taking initiative. Sensei, what's initiative?
The ability to start, almost self-start, do something first.
Yep.
In Dungeons and Dragons, it means you get to go first before the other person.
Dungeons and Dragons.
I played that when I was a teenager, so you roll for initiative.
That was the devil's playground. I couldn't play that.
Thank you, 80s.
Yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, the basic value down here, right? That's your sense of will, right? Sense of will, like drive. Down here, this one is purpose. So initiative versus guilt. It's a sense of purpose, taking movement with purpose. How many of you guys are like self-starters and you take initiative to get things done? Well, those people do great things in life. As a kid, now these are the kids that start wanting to dress themselves, right? You come downstairs and they're pouring the gallon of milk into the cereal bowl and spraying all over because they want to make their own food. Remember, we had a friend of ours, his name was Derek, And he's talking about how his kid almost burns his house down every Sunday and Saturday because she comes down and wants to make her own eggs, right? And so it's like they take initiative. They're doing things with purpose now because they're fully autonomous. If that's shut down, and if that is critiqued, and if that's not allowed, then they start having a sense of guilt. So you walk downstairs, you see the gallon of milk being poured all over the table, your natural response is to do what? Yell, freak out. Oh my gosh, you know how much that costs? Whatever, right? You gotta clean this up. And they're like, ooh, I have a problem. I've created a mess. Do you ever see a kid come down there so happy what they put themselves in? And you're like, ooh, you know? If you like say you have the most horrible sense of fashion I've ever seen in a 5-year-old, that cannot happen, right? You're gonna shame based and you're gonna do that. They're gonna have a sense of guilt. Well, my best thinking taught me this. I've seen parents even go as far as like mandate the toys that kids play with. They're taking initiative to play with toys. Like, that's not how you play with that. What? You know, are you kidding me? I remember I was coaching and counseling a family whose the mom was losing her mind because her kids were picking up rocks and throwing them into the river. And the dad's like, what is the problem? He's like, that's not where they belong. He's like, eventually they're all going down there, right? They're taking initiative to have a cause and effect, and she's creating this bizarre control. And I know that kids 3 to 5, I mean, this is crazy. And kids 3 to 5 are kind of intense. But if they can't take initiative to do things with purpose, I want to see what happens, the cause and effect of picking this up and throwing it down there. Then you have mom back here screaming at you. What do you think is going to happen to the kid? Everything I want to do, everything I'm trying to do is now has limits on it. Now, this happens in adults too, don't get me wrong, right? This happens to a lot of people. I was talking to someone today who wants to do something amazing and magnificent, and their friends and family are like, can't do that? Are you out of your mind? If you do that, you're going to fail. And she's like, I might not fail. Maybe I'll make it as far as I can, and that'll be that. It's like, oh yeah, but I wouldn't even try if I were you. Who are these people? Who does this kind of, you ever done something like that where you have some big idea, you're, I want to do this, and they're like, you can't touch the moon. I've talked to you guys about that, right? Yeah,
You know what I'm
happens
talking
a
about.
lot. Yeah, absolutely. Happens a lot, right? And then we almost feel ridiculed because we have this desire to want to do this. Like, you know that we don't have enough money for that. I wasn't talking about money. I was talking about an idea I wanted to do, and it gets shut down. So this first thing, this is a cool thing. One day I was trucking around the mall, University Mall, back in the old days when it was dark and dank and crazy, creepy back there. And there used to be this thing in the middle. Remember we used to pull taffy, that little taffy place? There's a little picture that was sitting next to that place. You remember, right? And it said, there's a poster that said, everything I learned in life, I learned in kindergarten. I got thinking, that's kind of cool. Because there's this funny little thing called success by 6. Everything that happens right here is the most important thing that will ever happen to you. Everything after this is a residual effect of these things. If you are unbalanced or don't have your paradigm shifted into this category by the time you're 6, the chances of you having a successful childhood become slim. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. You're looking at one because mine were way out of whack here, okay? But it took a lot of stuff we'll see down here to get me back in here to reset these things. I had to come all the way back up to here. Can I really trust myself with people in society, right? And so success by 6, it's super important. I mean, look at everything you learn in the first 6 years. You learn how to build relationships. You learn how to be dependent. You walk. You start to learn your muscles. You learn a whole vocabulary. You begin to speak. You build relationships, not just with friends and family, but also with things called teachers and all kinds of other stuff. You control your bowels. You control this. I mean, think about everything you learn. You grow teeth, for crying out loud. That's got to be painful, right? Some people, we don't remember that. Everything that happens that's amazing happens right here. Everything after this is a residual effect of this. It's crazy how important it is, right? Because now we get into the heavy stuff. This is the fun stuff. Number 4. And this is typically where things really begin for you. This is about where most people's awareness kind of comes on. I know some people that have memories from back here, and a couple that are here. I've never met someone who said, yeah, I was 6 months old and I didn't get my diaper changed. No one ever remembers that. But if you guys have memories that begin right here, that's interesting. That means either something pretty intense happened or something very amazing happened. Or someone's told you so much that it's become your truth, right? How many of you guys have memories in these categories? What's your earliest memory, let's say?
I literally just remember sitting at my cousin's house, eating ice cream.
Like a peak experience.
And that's, yeah, nothing grand or anything, I just remember it.
I love it. Who else has that? What year ago?
I was probably about 4 years old, and I had this dream. It was so real that I could fly. So my friend shows up at my house the next day. I straight up just eat shit right on my living room floor. Like, I can do this. I was so excited. Like,
You learned real quick. Right? You learned real quick that wasn't the case. Number 4, age 6 to age 12, something amazing happens. About age 5 and age 6, something really cool occurs in all of your worlds. What is it? School. Social life. A whole new family, one that you've never met. You're like, here we go, right? One of the coolest things. Industry versus inferiority. So industry means that you're part of something. It means that you have not only a family, but now you also have, Mrs. Call's, kindergarten class, or, you have like Sunday school, or you have Little League. You start having these other things that are bringing you into the grips of something outside of what you already know. There's an industry, and you're a huge part of this industry. You are the 3rd, 4th, 5th born. You're the firstborn. Maybe you are, the kid who sits in the middle of the classroom and has such and such friend that's good at coloring or art, whatever. You start to begin to develop these skill sets. That's why youth sports are so important, because now not only are you part of all these things, but now you're part of like the Braves Little League team or whatever it is. You're part of all these things. And the more you can become part of something, the more you can start taking initiative, act autonomous, and trust in your abilities. If not, you slide into inferiority. And this is what happened to me. This is where I started to identify where my problem started, is because we bounced around so much that I never started and finished the school year together. And so the inferiority complex got me heavy because I never belonged. First of all, I had a family that had different last names. We all looked different, right? And then we were bouncing around so much that I didn't know who any of these people were. It didn't matter what kind of relationships I had because they were going to leave soon. So this inferiority put me into a mindset of being shy and withdrawn and isolatory. And this happens a lot in life too. There are times when we start getting older where we don't reach out. We don't come to places like this or join, softball leagues or sign up for runs or go to pottery class or whatever. And you start to develop a sense of inferiority. I don't belong. I'm inferior to the what is. This is a scary place to be. I remember watching my friends growing up too. I remember looking back at it now and being like, man, my friend Cody, he used to play Little League. I used to go to his games and watch him in the bleachers. That kind of sucks. Not one person was like, man, we should get that kid to play in here. Right? But I was at his games. It's a kind of a weird thing. And I remember watching his dad be all proud of him and stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. And, that's pretty awesome. My industry to that point was, well, I'm his friend and I have this kind of family system. But a lot of it was inferiority. A lot of it was because of poverty and moving and all kinds of other substance abuse within my own family system. So that inferiority complex hit me hard, especially in grade school. Grade school is intense for kids, right? A lot of cool stuff happens there. As an adult, what do you think that looks like in an adult that has an inferiority complex? What's that like? What have you guys noticed? You bumped into people like this? If not, look in the mirror.
80% of people suffer from imposter syndrome.
Yes, they do. Why do you think that is?
Because at some point you've been told or told yourself that you don't deserve it, or
Yeah, just look at the list above, huh?
Social media.
That's a big one right now. This is a big one. We don't even know what the results of this is going to look like until some of our little ones grow up, right? It was hard enough when you needed to get the Jordache jeans and the LA Gear shoes back in the day, right? Can you imagine now what our kids are going through, what our kids will be going through? Absolutely. Jordache jeans. Remember those things?
Yes.
What is it nowadays? Like Nike shorts or something? My handwriting begins to suffer as I move on. To see you guys going. Identity versus role confusion. I bet you can't guess what age group this afflicts. You're right, it's teenagers. But here's the funny thing about this, about teenagers, this identity versus role confusion. Do you really think there's any teenager out there that's like, I've got this made. I know exactly who I am, where I stand. I'm self-actualized. No.
Depends on what time of day.
Depends on how narcissistic they are. Yeah, absolutely. What time of day it is. That's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about self-identification. It's not talking about like, I know who I am, I know where I stand. But they have a decent understanding of who they are. A lot of it is because of all the things that they've been able to do this. I was a little league player, so I'm an athlete, or I'm a jock, or I'm whatever. They have these things and they stick to it. If they have a family system that's stable, then they also know that they have these morals and these values and these belief systems. And they'll question them because there's times when they're going to have to. Most parents that have kids that start to kind of rebel a little bit is because they're confused as to the why. Why do you believe in this so strong? And if someone says, just because I do, well, that's stupid. You got to have a little bit more of a background on that. You can't say, I believe in this because my father believed in it, his father believed in it. Like, what does it mean to you? And if you can't say that, then you better probably go back and find out where you went off track. Because it doesn't mean that you don't have those things. It's like, what makes it personal to you? What makes your religion personal? What makes your spirituality personal? What makes your belief that the Cubs might win the World Series again believable, right? It's all of these things that you can identify with. At the end of the day, you know that there's enough emotional safety in your environment that if you have a problem, you can go to that person and say, hey, I screwed up. Or I have this heavy feeling I need to get out. If not, the role confusion kicks in and they don't know where they belong. They don't know who they really are. Authentically, one of the most important questions I've ever been asked that I told you guys is, who are you, Blue? And I couldn't answer that at 21 because I've missed that boat. I've spoken with people that are in their 60s that have no idea who they are. I'm working with an individual right now who's completely had a lifelong of marriage that just kind of got sucker punched with. And she's now in 65 plus range. And she's like, well, this sucked. I remember one time I was talking to Marissa and she's like, I don't even know what kind of music I like anymore because all I listen to is your crap, Blue. And all I listen to is the kids' stuff, And I'm like, holy crap, she's lost her identity because mine's more important. Kids' are more important. That kind of sucks, right? So if you're confused about where it's at, then you got to start going backwards to find out where it's beginning. So this is kind of a bugger. I mean, everything that happens in teenage years, this is usually where substance abuse kicks in. This is about where we start finding something that happens here too, obviously. But this is really where we start saying, you're the boss of me, Dad. I'm out of here, sucker. Right here. And a lot of times it happens here. How many of you were introduced to substances in stage number 4? That young. Absolutely. I was. I didn't really kick in gear until this age here, but this was a humdinger of a stage, right? If pornography use usually happens about right here too. All these things, these impulsive things like eating disorders, all kinds of stuff, right here. So by the time you hit here, you're like, oh, piss. One of the hardest things I've ever had to wrap my head around is any parent that would use with their kid. That is so hard for me to wrap my head around. It makes me sick to even think about. Because here's a kid thinking that I'm building an identity with my parent because we're using together. That is false. I think I'm sorry, but I think there's a very special place in hell for parents that introduce their kids as, I'm going to bond with you over drinking and using because they're too big of cowards to deal with their own stuff. And so they bring their kids into it. This is where it begins. We won't even get on that platform because I might be canceled on whatever platform we are streaming to. Lots of us then start getting into this little area. And here comes some heartbreak because a lot of you guys are going to start falling into these categories. We've all experienced these, except for one little guy, right? He's kind of still in the middle of all this. Most of you guys start falling into these ones right here. There's no 19-year-olds in here, is there? Okay, good. All right. Number 6, intimacy versus isolation. What am I talking about, Marissa? What kind of intimacy am I talking about? Remember, we have a kid involved here.
Relationships, being able to be open and honest and trust others and
Vulnerable.
be vulnerable, create memories and experiences with others. And
20 to 40. Yeah, emotional intimacy, one of the coolest things ever. I didn't know what that was. That was crazy. I remember the first time I started understanding what comfortable silence was. You ever have that with someone where you don't have to say anything? You just know how you feel. They know how they feel. It's not like, are you okay? Are you all right? Something wrong? I remember my stepdad doing that to my mom all the time. It drove me crazy. I'm like, oh, she's fine. Leave her alone. You know? You okay? Something wrong? Did I do something? Yeah. Holy insecurity, right? Emotional intimacy is one of the coolest things, but it can only happen if you know how to love yourself, if you know how to love and be loved yourself. It can't happen if you think you're going to get that from somebody else. You have to have that with yourself first. If not, you're going to fall into this isolation stage. And you can be married very happily, but isolate. This happens so much in our day and age right now. I work with so many couples that are in this stage, and it's isolation. It's video games, headphones. It's all these things. It's stuff that kind of like takes away from the emotional capacity of what relationships are. This right here, and it looks on the surface as if it's all well, right? You have some people that get so good at playing the script that they can go to church on Sundays, they can go to their jobs, they can show up to PTA, they can do all these things. But at the end of the day, it's non-verbal, non-communicative. It's isolatory, you know? And it's crazy. I find myself starting to do that sometimes. Why? Because it's kind of an interesting paradigm. I'm like, you know, I don't think anyone wants to talk with me. So when someone knocks on the door, I run away. I don't want to talk to anybody, right? If there's too much going on, I'm like, maybe I'll just sit over here, you know? Why? Because I'm like, who would want to hang out with me over here? Like, they're all here to see each other. But like, that's a big part of it. The intimacy part is I got to be okay with me so that I can be okay with everybody else. And if not, well, then I got to find out, well, I'm confused on what role I'm playing here. I got to start, you know, getting back into the identity. I'm dad. I'm husband. I'm Blue. I'm therapist. I'm whatever, right? This isolation stage is scary.
I think a lot of it comes from just distraction.
Loss
You
of
can't-
distraction.
No matter what stress, whatever, they start using it as a distraction, and then it often ends up leading to that isolation because they're not building emotional intimacy.
So you wonder why addiction is so prevalent with this part too, because you've already found the source of it here, because you know, like, I know this stuff works. When you carry it into your adult life, it's even harder, because then you really start isolating. One of the saddest things, and I say this and people get pissed when I say it, but I've never seen a relationship that works if people have addiction in common, that they've done addiction together. Never seen it work. In my 20 plus years of doing this, I've never seen someone that married someone that they've used with that is happily ever aftered. That sucks. Do you have that in common together? Doesn't mean like I'm in recovery and then I meet you. Hello. It's still hard, but that can work. But if you have a history of using together, statistically, I've never seen it. And I've seen so many people like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so. And I'm like, well, let's peel back that layer a little bit. You start looking at, they're coexisting. It's kind of a scary thing. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's some diamonds in the rough out there. I've never seen it. Does that make sense? Why do you think that is? I'm curious. This is just a world according to Blue. It's not written in gospel. Why do you think that is? Especially in the stage right here. Justin's better smiling, but I know he won't answer my question. He knows, but I'm not gonna even pick on him. Why do you think that is?
Is it because they never found themselves and they're just close and only find each other?
Yeah, absolutely. Codependency kicks in, right? Or if not, it's like you are one emergency away. You know, we're one crisis, one trauma threshold away from losing it. So many times when this happens to you, you'll find one spouse that'll start getting back into it, they'll start isolating, they'll get back into it, and then you'll start finding the bottles, you start finding the residues, you start finding some of the stuff, right? You'll find the pornography on the computers, you start doing these things, and it's devastating. Because while I'm maintaining my sobriety, my recovery, you're out here doing this, well, you don't know what kind of stress I'm under. The hell you say, right? See, here's the thing that was kind of interesting with Marissa and my relationship is that even in my worst day, I could never justify getting high. I could be like, well, you should know. you don't know what it's like. She's like, no, I don't. But I also know what it's like to have these feelings and to not use. So I could never justify it to her. She'd call me a dummy and kick me out, right? It wouldn't work. And at the same time, it's one of these things where she's never used. So how in the world would she be able to help me? She doesn't know what I've been through. She doesn't know the trauma I've experienced. She's never used, so she doesn't know why I need it. So like I like when people say, well, you've never had a drug problem or an alcohol problem or addiction, so you can't help me. Stupid. Those are the people you need to find because they've been through everything we've been through, but they chose other outlets. Does that make sense? It's one of the coolest things. Whenever I hear someone get on their horse, like at a treatment center or something, I'm like, shut up, dude, don't say that. That's dumb. This isolation stage is scary though, because if we are in a situation, let's just say that it's not substance abuse. Let's say that it's emotional disengagement. Let's say that it's real confused situations with your partner and you literally fall out of love. Then what? All right, divorce. That's kind of a hard thing too, right? Because like you got this picture in your head when you start this marriage or this experience, but then someone's not living up to their responsibilities or their potential in the relationship. Maybe things start getting short. Maybe they stop being appreciated. Maybe they stop being seen. Remember the 3 things people need? To be seen, to be heard, and to be understood. And when jobs or education or family starts kicking in and you lose track of that with the person you've chosen, you will isolate. And when you isolate, if the person doesn't come find you, there's a problem, right? If they don't realize that you're gone, even though you're there, there's a huge problem. I thought we were happy. What the hell? You thought we were happy? You've never even complimented me on something that I did or something that I was wearing or something that I did or that I got you. That's a hard pill to swallow. We have to be engaged, actively engaged in relationships or else isolation kicks in. And if not, you get on to the next stage, which is kind of a bugger of a stage. Unfortunately, I just fell into this stage too, by the way. Generativity versus stagnation. What do you think it means to be generative? What do you think that means? Steve, you've done a lot of research on this.
Still producing.
Yeah. Meaning Steve dives into it. He's not an old man. Say that again, Earl.
Still producing.
Still producing. What does that mean?
Generate.
Like
Yes.
you're
Generating.
having kids still. No, you're,
You're not making them anymore. You're raising them, right?
you're still providing,
Yeah.
for yourself, or you're, trying to think of a good phrase for it, but you're not just, you're contributing to society, not just
You're producing. Yeah.
sucking from it.
Absolutely. You're doing things. Like it or not, you were generative during the race on Saturday. Why? Because you were out there. You're having experiences. You were there. Does that make sense? You're generating an emotion, a feeling, an experience to come back and return and report on. You were building something. You're building relationships, friendships. You're creating. You're producing. And a lot of times, this is about midlife crisis stuff. This is where if we find ourselves stagnant because we're not doing those things, and we blame things on my health, my relationships, my income, and we get stagnant, that means you're anchored, right? Stagnation seems like such a gross word. One time, Jed and I were like running, trying to take down a bunch of these marathon markers and stuff for the Tim marathon, and we were dying. We needed water bad, not as bad as I was on Saturday, but bad. And I looked down, and there's this puddle, and there was like bugs in it and moss. And I literally thought, maybe I can drink around the Giardia, sip over here, right? It was stagnant water, and it smelled horrible. And that's exactly how this looks. Stagnation is just you're anchored. You're not doing anything. This is a sad existence, too. This is a hard thing. You guys, it takes an incredible amount of energy for you guys to get here every Tuesday. I'm kind of blown away you keep showing up. Because it'd be so much nicer at times just to stay home. I heard blues lesson 1,000,000 times. I could watch it on the owl, right? but you're not. You're generating, you're coming here, you're producing, you're experiencing. This is a hard thing. I look at like what we do with like Team Addict II Athlete, right? Like created something to give back to people where they could start laying the foundations of their recovery without having to spend tons of money. You can get this for free. Some people pay millions of dollars to figure this stuff out. Eric Erickson gave it to you for free. The generativity part of this means that you're doing something. So if you're feeling like I can't do this, or I would love to run, but, or I would love to go out and, swing a bat, but you're stagnant. Stagnation, this is midlife crisis stuff. Midlife crisis stuff is kind of interesting. That's what this is. If you're not producing, if you're not generating, I love, my kids are driving me nuts right now because they're all old enough now to want everything and invest very little. Well, how about you do the dishes? Well, I didn't make those dishes. Neither did I, but I do them all the time, right? For some reason, the kids will clean the whole house but leave the dishes. And I'm like, are you serious? What is that? Like, right?
Yeah.
But we created a little bugger, so half of it's my fault. You know what I'm saying? So this part right here is kind of hard. You ever bumped into somebody that just seems like they're just done?
My 40s?
Oh, yeah, 40s and 50s. Just done.
No, my 40s.
Your 40s, you felt
Oh,
stagnant,
oh,
did you?
Yes. You described my 40s.
How come? Right here, isolating, not putting in, pushing people away, hiding.
It's a long story to go into, but
Let's get him up here. Never mind, everybody, just kidding.
yeah. No,
It's true though, huh?
I talked.
What got you out of it? How did you move from stagnation?
Even when
to
I was
generative?
in there,
Mhm.
I always had hope of what I wanted to do. I was just so stuck, I didn't know how to do it. So I kept spinning my wheels, trying things that, I just kept going around in circles. I wanted to do something, I wanted to generate, but I, in retrospect, was depressed. I was stuck where I was and provided nothing. I mean, we were on, we had welfare, we were on church assistance, and I just could not pull myself out of it for the life of me until I finally went down to the core and built a little bit. And this is after I had been out teaching and coaching and all this stuff, and I hit and just boom, and lost everything. And, well, almost lost everything.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Is you probably had to go here and be like, all right, then I gotta start creating some intimacy within my why. Like I gotta get to know me. What's wrong here? And maybe that's I gotta re-identify who I am. Like what am I about? Maybe even I gotta like branch out and start building bigger industries. Does it make sense?
Oh yeah.
This is what's cool about this. Last one. Integrity versus despair. 65 until the day that we cash in our chips, right? I've seen people leave this world in despair. When I was serving as bishop, there's a couple of times when I would conduct funerals and I'd go there and there'd be like 3 or 4 people at their service. And I'm like, oh, ouch. That's crazy. That hurts. Why? Why would that be a hard pill to swallow?
A whole lifetime, and like no connection, no anything.
Yeah.
They stayed on this side. I mean, they stayed stagnant, they isolated, confused with their role. They continued to feel inferior on just that whole side.
I'd say even without that, my mom for a long time would have fallen in despair.
Yeah.
Even though she had people all around her. But she was there for a long, long time because even though they were all there, everybody had their lives and couldn't get to her.
Yeah.
Until people could.
See?
And then it moved out.
That's a hard thing too. And this is something that all of us have to wrap our heads around. Me included. Gosh, why am I such a baby? Pull it together, Blue. I look at this, and I think, God, to have a life of integrity, to look back and be like, dude, that was freaking rad. What a cool thing. I ran the hills of Salt Lake City, right? I ran the trails up this mountain. I've eaten snow at this peak. I swam in this body of water, I've lived. I've watched my kids grow up and become people and families of their own. Look back with integrity and be like, that was freaking rad. Or look back at it and be like, well, that freaking sucked. Maybe the hokey pokey was what it was all about. Go ahead, man.
It's like the movie Up.
Yeah, 100%.
That's that whole thing.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the amount of people you have at your funeral dictates what kind of life you lived, right? What I'm saying is that we're not supposed to check out of here looking back at it thinking that sucked. We're supposed to have the sense of like accomplishment. People, you want people to remember you. And it won't be forever, but for a little while it'll be nice, right? Because none of us really remember many of our ancestors right now. A lot of them came here before us, our own self-absorbed life. And I think if you get too deep in that, you get kind of weird too. So, But this is the thing, right? Is you want that feeling. So it boils down to this. You put a little check in where you're at right now. Whatever paradigm you're in. For me, number 7, I feel pretty good. I feel like I'm generating, creating, producing things. A lot of you guys are. You may not realize, Blue, but you do podcasts. It doesn't matter. What it matters is like when I'm out and dying on the road and Josh and KP give me the bird. And I'm like, that's a tear of endearment, right? Generating stories and funny crap just because I'm like, if they knew how bad I felt, they'd feel bad. But he's laughing.
We did. I can laugh again now because it's over.
Or I can go home and even though my kids are driving me crazy and I got an 18 or a 17-year-old that thinks she's 25 and I'm like, can't put the brakes on her now. I gotta let her fly. She's gonna do her own thing. I created that, I generated that. But for some of us that get stuck, it's as easy as going back. You look at the very first time you ever used anything. First time you ever used anything. Throw one out there. How old were any of you when you used something for the very first time? 6? Okay, 6 years old. What was going on in your life at age 4?
Lots of peace around me, disconnect inside the family.
It's crazy stuff, brother. So, this is the funny thing, is the world according to Blue again. What I've noticed is that people that have addictions, substance abuse issues, addictions, eating disorders and stuff, the very first time you start doing dive and indulge in that kind of stuff, the very first time you rewind the tape about 2 years. It takes about 2 years after an activating event, something heavy, some kind of traumatic experience, and that's about when you find something where it's introduced into your world. So if you rewind the tape, you start finding out where you're at. So brother, right here, this is you, number 3, initiative versus guilt. And one thing I know about you is you feel deeply. I know you do. I've known you for a long time. I also know that little word probably hangs over you quite a bit. The should-haves, the could-haves, the would-haves. So how then, if our guy back there is here in life, how do we make these steps back here to get to where we get him back on track?
With self-awareness instead of
The cool thing is you don't go back here and try to like develop a sense of intimacy with who you are and what you're about, or try to build an industry. You literally go back here, initiative. What would initiative look like for you? You're starting it. You're coming here, showing up, right? Stop bad talking yourself. Like, oh, I've got this recovery weight, can't go running, right? Initiative. The more you can do things on your own with purpose, the stronger you're going to be, and you're going to fall right down into here. And you're kind of here now. You're part of Addict II Athlete. Get your fanny in gear, right? And then what? You develop a sense of identity. I'm Dallas, and I'm an athlete. I'm a runner. I'm a father. You're not a father yet, are you? Don't be a father yet. I'm a runner. Yeah. Now I'm a friend. Yeah. I'm a brother. I'm a son. All these things. And then what? You open your heart back up to allow yourself to be loved again. Those First time around, that stung. It'll be a hard one for you, but you'll find it. And then, does it make sense? This is what's cool about this. Every one of you can find this. All you have to do is increase where you got off track a little bit. It's one of the coolest things. Window's like, oh, hell. See what they're adjusting. Oh, yeah. This is what's awesome about this. This is the blueprint right here. I mean, think about it for a minute. You know, where do you begin? Or even if you're like, yeah, I don't really feel too bad. I don't want to go all the way back. Just, you know what? Invest a little bit more. Get to know more people. Emotional intimacy isn't a sexual thing. It's an emotional thing. It's about when you're with someone, being with that someone. You know, it was funny because before the race on Saturday, my mind was all over. KP's talking to me. I'm fading away looking at Jed trying to find the Robinsons. Josh is talking to me. And I don't think I even got to finish what KP was even saying to me because I'm like, I wasn't there. I was in La La Land already. And so KP was like, yeah, nice talking to you. Does that make sense? So intimacy means that you're there, that you're the most important person right now. Kind of a crazy thing. So you really kind of like take strides in this kind of stuff. There are some of us that are going to have to go all the way back here. Trust versus mistrust. And that's okay too. Trust is a gift. That's not something that's earned. And pretty soon you're going to have to gift it to someone. You know, kind of a cool thing. I get long-winded. We're just like, come on, wrap it up there, buddy. How long have we been going?
56 minutes.
Holy crap. Is you guys bored yet? So, what do you do with this information?
Use it.
How, Dallas? Study it. What do you guys think? Last, we'll sum it up here. Final thoughts.
I think the biggest thing is to be honest with yourself and where you are and where you may not be. Like you said, there's people who feel like they're comfortable at whatever level, but maybe in reality, they need a reality check.
Yeah.
I know that was true for me in the past, and looking at it now, I feel pretty good about where I am at stage 7, generativeness or whatever.
Generativity,
But,
yeah. Stagnation.
I don't feel very stagnant, so. But I think that's the biggest thing is be honest with yourself. Make sure you actually know where you are and if you need support.
You know what's cool about that too? After the run and stuff, I told the person, like, I have no idea what this is about. Like, I am beyond, I don't get this. I flew all the way back in here to identity. Well, maybe I'm done running. Maybe I'm not. Maybe Justin's going to win. I am a cyclist. Right? I told him, I'm never running again. I freaking hate this. And so it happens all the time, right? You just don't know how to get out of it. Yeah.
I was gonna say, the other thing is, even though you have the blueprint here, and technically you can walk through this yourself, it's hard sometimes.
Oh, for
And
sure.
if you're stuck, you need somebody to
Mhm.
help you walk through it.
Point it out. That's what's cool about it. Yeah, it's kind of funny. We blazed over this in graduate school, but I'm like, wait a minute, there's so many more deep things you can get out of this. So, anywho, athletes, who am I?
I'm a champion.
You guys are all amazing in your role confused, isolatory, stagnated states.